Welcome to the series of Developing a Squat Practice. My name's Kunal, I'm the CEO and founder of Tooth Club, and I'm going to take you on the journey of building your perfect squat practice. So this is episode 1. Today we're going to talk about picking the perfect location for your new squat practice. You want to make sure that you're positioned in the right place, in the right town, and where there's a demand for dentistry. So there's a few different things that I look at when we're looking at where to place our dental practices. The first one is to make sure we've got some footfall. So all of our Tooth Club dental practices are on high footfall locations, typically in town centres or shopping centres is where we will position ourselves. So we have naturally people walking past, seeing the Tooth Club brand, will come in and book their appointment. This makes dentistry more accessible to patients. It allows us to offer a wide range of treatments which patients want. So location is really key. So we do a lot of analysis around demographics. We look at people's affordability, their income, accessibility to dentistry and NHS care in particular areas. All of these things make you realise whether a practice is going to be successful. Are you going to get patients in that need dental care? Or is there 5 other practices in a very small, close proximity? All of these things are used to aid us to understand where the right location is for our next squat practice. We look at demographics. We look at how many practices are in a 3-mile radius. We also speak to people when we go on certain high streets and ask them where they go to have their dental care. And this helps us form an opinion around where the right place is to position our dental practice. So when choosing a site, when we find the right high street or the right town that we want to position our practices in, the most important thing is to look at the size of the building. Now, if you go too big, your building cost is going to be way too high. But then if you go too small, it stops any future growth potential and it all feels very small and cluttered. And these things stop the patient experience being premium and high end. So it's really, really important to find the right location and then the right size of unit in that particular location. So typically, all of our locations at Tooth Club are around 1,500 square feet. This size of location means it's not overly big, so it's not going to mean that your building costs become really excessive, but it also means that you can comfortably put in 5 or 6 surgeries. You may not want to get those already at the start, but it's got future potential if you want to grow your dental practice. It also means the layout, the way that your patient journey walks. You've got big open reception area, you can have a TCO room, you can have a manager's office, you can have a good sized decontamination room. So it makes the patient journey flow really nicely, but it also means that your staff have a nice environment to work in. Recruitment, as we all know, can be a real challenge. Having a nice working environment really adds to our recruitment process here at Tooth Club. So big staff rooms, place where our staff can get changed, in and out of tunics, locker rooms. These things are really important. So 1,500 square feet or nearabouts of that is a really good size to have. So when you do a squat practice, building regulations is really, really important. Making sure you've got the right airflow, making sure you've got the right fire alarm systems, that you've done all your risk assessments in terms of where you're going to position your surgeries and your layouts. So building regs is a really important consideration. And now if you hire the right building regulator, they'll really support you on that journey to make sure you're compliant. And if you are compliant from a building regs perspective, this makes the CQC process far easier because you will be DDA compliant in terms of kind of getting your wheelchair access in. You will have all the right fire equipment that you need in your practice. So it does make, if you've got the right building control that support you on your squat journey, it will make your other elements of getting sign off with the CQC a lot easier. Demographics when doing a squat practice are really, really important. When you're building your practice, and particularly if you're going to be a private practice, making sure that you're going into towns that they don't necessarily need to be super affluent, but they do need to have a certain demographic mix in the population. The population that go to the dentist regularly, that can afford to pay for the private care. Areas where NHS care may be slightly more difficult and people will make the sacrifice to go and have private care, or they may have private dental insurance through working. So all of these things are really important when you're picking your demographic location, and also the size of the town and the size of that demographic is really important. If you go into a small town, you're likely to have fewer patients, maybe higher ticket patients, but fewer patients. Whereas if you're going into a town which has got a higher footfall and a higher population, you've got the volume that can help reach your sales, profit and turnover goals. So when you're looking at your squat site, You obviously have the option of leasing a property or buying the freehold. A lot of my practices are on high street locations, and they tend to be leasehold properties because they're bought by more private equity type companies. So when we're looking at ours, we tend to do more leaseholds, but freeholds are a great option. If you have a freehold property or are looking to buy a freehold property and placing a squat, you do have the benefit of not having the rent overhead, but obviously you then have maybe a mortgage on it. So having it and weighing those things up are really, really important. What I would say, if you're doing a property and you're buying a property, I would put that property in a different limited company to the company that is your trading entity, because you want to keep that, or you may want to keep that property as a long-term investment when you have maybe retired or sold off your dental practice. So you may want to keep that in a different legal entity. What I also say around freehold is, if a freehold doesn't work, right, yeah, you've got the option to go and sell that freehold. Okay. Whereas if you're leaseholding a property and you built a squat practice, your lease is typically going to be 10, 15 years long. So how do you get out of that if your practice is unsuccessful or you decide this squat practice isn't the right journey? So I think having an exit in mind or a fallback process is really important. So the way that I manage my leases and the risk within my leases is we always have a tenant only break clause. So we will sign up to a 15-year lease, but then have the option to exit that lease. For example, if a squat practice doesn't work out, or we've decided actually we don't want to be in this town, or as we've seen in some high streets, those high streets are no longer the same high streets they used to be 5 years ago, we then have a exit clause within our lease terms. So whether it's lease or freehold, both have their pros and cons. Dentistry being at the heart of the community, I think is really, really important. The way we win patients is by being a local dental practice. In my own business as a tooth club, we have lots of different sites, but we keep being local at the core of our strategy. From a marketing perspective, from a patient care perspective, what I've found in our journey is if you open a practice in Ipswich or you open a practice in Kent or Essex, the patient dynamics are very, very different. And you really need to know the local patients in your local area and being part of the community, sponsoring the local football team or doing a bake sale or taking part in a local school fair. All of those things are really, really important to grow your squat practice and have some really strong foundations in the community for ultimate success of your dental practice. So guys, that's the end of our first series of this squat practice journey. I hope you enjoyed it and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.